Hello, everybody. Sorry for the delay. Thank you for your patience. I'm just going to go ahead and quickly just say hello to everybody. If I don't shout you out and you would appreciate a shout out, then just give me another hello. Or if you have specific questions, then also just at me in the chat because it just makes it a little bit easier. Hey, Paul Morgan. Hey, Rose Gold. Hey, Psyder. Hey, Klaus K. Jean McLean. Arctic Hamburger, Martin Taylor, Cider, I think I already said how's it, Gilf, A Silent State, Nihilist37. I wonder if these folks are still here. Scishout, Chibabble, Nimesha, MyLogify. Thank you everyone for tuning in. And a special thank you to MyLogify for that little gift that you sent. That thing is really awesome. In fact, I used it this weekend. Pretty scary, but it was fun. Hey, Michael Soranado. Hey, SNF, McSNF. Bludge108. Gary Edwards. How's everyone doing on this Monday? So, the idea today is I kind of want to do something I've kind of been neglecting a little while. You know, the good old Psytrance track from scratch. You know, I've been focused a lot on the ambient stuff. I've been focusing a lot on the progressive stuff. But I kind of like taking little kind of breaks from specific genres of things, because then when you dive back in, I feel like you often have this kind of hey, Psyder. It was actually Psyder who asked for the specific stream, who happens to be one of my Inner Circle Patreons and big supporter. So thanks again for that. But I've kind of been wanting to dive back for a little while. Lola, hey, I was wondering if you studied music production in university. Not on a university level, but on a kind of college level. So I did get a diploma in audio engineering. But it's one of those things where, you know, I guess at the stage where I was learning, how can I say? Music production and audio engineering, things were very different back then. You know, there was a lot of focus on the analog stuff, like tracking to tape and all that kind of thing. And I guess technology develops so quickly that it's one of those things where I guess it's not about going into it and learning all the things that you need to kind of enable yourself to work as an engineer or a music producer, but it teaches you how to learn things. You know what I mean? So I guess like with any college, you know, you don't just go in and come out a good whatever it is. You know, you don't go to learn psychology and come out instantly a good psychologist. You know, there's a level of understanding and a level of kind of effort that you have to put in, I guess, on top of that as well. But it helped me to understand the fundamentals of sound itself, in terms of, you know, what a sine wave is, how speakers react in a room, how, you know, a microphone works. So I guess it also helps me to produce the videos in a way and do the live stream and stuff in a way that's kind of, it's not just a mess, because I kind of have an idea of how, you know, the microphone works, how to place it in a room, and those certain things. Hey, Lost Synapse, thank you so much for that. Wow, I appreciate you guys. So I guess there's two sides to it. If you just want to make music, then I would say just keep working at the craft, because going to college and stuff is not going to make you it's not going to make you make better music. Do you know what I mean? If you want to work professionally in the field, then think about doing that, because it's going to teach you about other aspects of sound, not just making beats. You know what I mean? So there's that aspect to it as well. So I see there was a question about whether I'm bigger on SoundCloud and that kind of thing. My whole ethos to, I have no idea how mic works. My Logify, it's not as simple as it's not just like put it in and it works. Do you know what I mean? There's certain things, I guess, to it, like what phantom power is and what different microphones do. Some microphones are front address, some are side address, and all sorts of things. And knowing about proximity and those kinds of things, I guess, just all helps. So going back to what I was saying about the my kind of ethos with success, I guess, as in any sort of field. Do you know what I mean? Is you got to think of it as like you have various pillars that you need to kind of keep the roof up. It's almost like an architectural thing. Like you think about if you just focus on one area, then you don't have enough to, for example, like live on or be successful or be a professional. So I feel like you have to work at various different pillars, to kind of keep an overall level of success. Whether it's uploading to SoundCloud once a week, and also doing something else and something else. As long as there's particular fields or things that you do that you focus on, then I believe that it's going to kind of keep that roof afloat. But if you kind of just focus too much on one thing, then what might happen is that thing might not become as profitable, for example. So one example is like if you dedicate your time to making presets for a particular plugin, and then suddenly that plugin is not as popular anymore. So this is actually, I'm talking from personal experience. So, and then suddenly that preset, that plugin is not so popular anymore, then you're going to be stuck in that you no longer have that income stream. Whereas if you think about it beforehand and you focus on like, okay, I'm going to spend half of my energy or a quarter of my energy on creating plugins for a specific presets for a specific plugin, and the other quarter of my energy is focusing on something else, the other quarter of my energy focusing on Bandcamp, and the other focusing on something else, for example, like affiliate marketing and whatever the case is, then if one pillar suddenly collapses, then there's still enough to keep the thing afloat. So going back to the actual question, I guess it's a bit of a turnaround, but going back to the actual question, for me, I've never found SoundCloud to be enough to focus on, so I've kind of just left it aside. For me, my focuses are YouTube, Bandcamp, Patreon, and making presets. And those are kind of my 4 pillars. So if the one, for example, suddenly falls off, like if YouTube bans me, then I still have the Patreon, the presets, and Bandcamp, for example. Or if Bandcamp suddenly bans me, or whatever the case is, then we're going. You get the picture. So think of it like a primitive building, and you need to concentrate on 4 pillars or 3 pillars or whatever the case is. But the moment you start focusing too much on one thing or spreading yourself too thin as well, then it's a case of it's all gonna just collapse, Psytrance, speaking of presets, how is Transition Preset Pack for Snapheap going? Very well. Almost done. I'm actually going to maybe show off a couple of things, but I don't want to talk about too much of it today because I'm saving the hype. But for anybody who's wondering, I've got a preset pack coming out for Snapheap very soon, with some interesting stuff in it. But again, I don't want to give away too much, but I'm going to show off a couple of things from the pack today. So, hey Dada, how are you doing? Good to see you, man. Absolutely, creativity comes from you, and at the end of the day, it's all about like the amount of time that you put in, and that translates to good results. So it's like that 10,000 hours thing all over again, Okay, so I'm going to get into it. If you guys have questions, just at me. Paul Morgan, do you think there's a preferred key for EDM? See you referenced something else. With regards to note relationship, yes, absolutely. I think like minor and Phrygian are like the most popular scales you'll hear, and notes between like F and G sharp are probably the most popular, but just because of where those notes are in the frequency spectrum, but also because a minor scale often sounds a little bit more epic, so it gives you that kind of sense of how can I say? You know, like often electronic music has this kind of sense of like epicness as opposed to more kind of background music and that kind of thing. And Simmer says D, yes, because he's not using fat basses, you know what I mean, and subs and that kind of thing. So I'm just going to use Playbeat to throw in like an idea, like a random idea of percussions. I'm going to just grab something from my Grooves, Grids, and Glitches pack, which is the free thing. It's basically got like full backtracks, but I'm just going to mute the kicks, basses. I'll probably replace the snares and the main hats, but just to kind of get an idea going really quickly, you know what I mean? So what the spectrum shows is phase over like different frequency domains. It doesn't actually show how much is in a specific thing, if that makes sense. Yeah, I'm gonna get into some of the cool features. I guess there's not so much to talk about in the latest update, except for like some bug fixes and a few things. But I'm gonna talk about some of the features momentarily. So that pad, it's basically a patch that I've been using in like every stream for the past, don't even know how long. It's just a couple of sine waves being with the melody, with a lot of reverb, portal, and digitalis. I'll break it down for you, like what the patch sounds like without the reverb and stuff. So it's just that sound with a ton of reverb on it. The thing is, like, the reason I do this is because we can just go in here and then, like, technically change it by just changing the riffer patch that's playing in here, you know? So I'm telling you, like 9 times out of 10, this is going to sound more lush than that vocoder thing. Like, I know the vocoder trick, dude. Like, we know it, bro. So like here, for example, you can just change the relationship of these notes by changing how it randomizes them, how many notes are in there, the scale of pitches. Now we can go into Vital and we can change the patch here. So obviously, some of you may or may not know about like one of the biggest features they've added in Vital, which is the spectral filters. So what that allows you to do is actually draw in your own custom filter curve. So for example, you can draw in something like this, and then it'll emulate something close to kind of like a low pass filter, for example. But you can draw in like your exact curves that you want, or you can say, for example, at certain frequencies you have a boost. So you can do all sorts of weird things. And you don't just have spectral filters, you've got spectral flanges, which kind of do a similar thing, but it changes the kind of flanger based on the spectral parameters, or like the frequency that you map out with this graph over here. Okay, you guys can see what I'm saying. Phaser is by far the best though, like, oh, so good. Just this with like a saw wave phaser thing and just some effects, instant Psytrance lead. Let's maybe put compressor to give it some bite, chorus. Then the usual suspects. We can maybe do distortion. I'm not so sure about that. It's already quite a nice sound as it is. Let's just put on some delay. I actually don't think we need reverb here. Oh, so good. But I want to actually make use of Bitwig's pressure articulation to get some really nice, you know, curves and stuff that we can kind of draw in, not just random, you know what I mean? We can really articulate it nicely here. You know, rather than just, for example, using velocities to map like binary hits or like values per hit, we want like individual sweeps. So for example, we can, like the first hit, we can sweep like up with that curve that we made. Let's just solo this. Oh, we actually have to, if we're going to use these parameters, we actually have to enable MPE in Vital, I believe. Over here. Why is this not working? It's strange. Well, it's okay. What we could do is we could just map it to a macro and just do it inside. Just do it inside Bitwig with the expressions. Let's add a modulator. This is the beauty of Bitwig. It's like if something doesn't work how you want it to or how it did in your mind, there's always another way. You know what I mean? There's like almost no limitations. So hopefully if we assign this pressure to this, then this should modulate. There we go. Okay, so the strength of like creating most of the sounds like in the clip launcher before actually throwing them into the arranger view is you can kind of audition which of these clips work well together, which with the other ones and that kind of thing. And that just makes for arranging the track afterwards so much easier. You can kind of just fly through the arrangement process once you have a lot of ideas in mind. I think Wavemorpher, I think you mentioned the question about like what it would be like if you did the intro first. And I find like often you can hear when tracks sound very linear, it's almost like they started somewhere and they didn't know where they were going, so they kind of just added sounds in and kept fluffing it out from there. Whereas I feel like if you kind of know what you're arranging towards, you can get a much more cohesive arrangement, if you know what I mean. I just need to go get some water. In fact, what I'll do is also just get a coffee refill. So I'll be 2 minutes. I will see you guys shortly. Okay, let's go. So I kind of in my mind, I have this idea of what lead I think would sound pretty cool here. Kind of distorted, a bit of a distorted, detuned kind of thing could be really cool here. Something, like a kind of basic sound, but we work on the way we modulate the sound and automate it to kind of work well with the progression of the track. Let's actually just do a Control S. And let's tune it to the root note. So we're in G sharp. Those who are wondering like what I'm doing here with the note transpose, like if you don't know about the way like I work, is I kind of only know the C scales. So I find it easier to kind of just transpose everything from there so that it fits whatever root note I'm doing in the track. So for example, like I can just start putting in a lead here in C, but it's actually playing in G sharp. So with these kinds of leads, to get it to really kind of cut, I find like often they kind of sound a little bit sloppy. So there's various methods that I use. So we could either use a noise sample and then add like an LFO or an envelope to quickly pluck the noise, just to add like a transient to the sound. Or we could do a similar thing with like a FM wavetable. So I'm just going to pull up one of the data side tables. FM single cycles. These are usually pretty good. So what I want to do is I just want to mute this so I can hear what this sounds like on its own. So often with these, I find it helps to align the phase so that it like sits nice with the original. Let's maybe check at a higher pitch. No, maybe a different sound. There we go. There we go. So I had the one tune too low. That's why. Much better. But what we could do is we could actually, kind of split this up into various different, the body of the sound, the tail of the sound, and the transient of the sound, or whatever the case is, using envelopes. So we could like stack this on top, the idea I was talking about with the, white noise envelope, just plucking in at a transient. We could stack the idea of that alongside, adding that FM layer. So this is particularly helpful like when you want to use it in the context of like a transition type of sound, because now you sweep the filter up and it removes most of the body of the sound, but you still have that tick, 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 which is carrying the rhythm of the transition. So I think in this case it's a bit much. We can maybe just turn the volume down a little bit here. In Vital, I usually just default to the effects filter because you can move it around. Sometimes I'm not sure if I want the filter after or before the distortion. So just putting the FX there, it means you can move it around. Whereas if you make a patch with the pre-filters, having to then redo all the settings to the post-filters, it's just annoying. So just starting out with the filter effects is just easier for me. Okay, I'm gonna bounce some of these things, like the pads, the random glitches, so we can chop them up and use them where necessary. Do post fader 32-bit. I love how you can track the whole scene in Bitwig. You use the length of the longest clip. Yeah, it's super helpful for, especially like when arranging like clips. If you want longer pieces with shorter clips, you can just create a longer clip out of it. And also the fact that like all the audio is always like contained within a container. It's a little bit confusing at first, but in terms of workflow, it's super powerful because you can kind of create these edits and then, you know, loop those and create clips out of those, which is, you know, very, very powerful. Also, this thing that I love is like this. So when you disable a track, it like disappears. So you can actually have like projects technically with like infinite tracks because it's like out of the CPU and it's out of sight, out of mind. It's a bit dangerous, I guess, because then, you know, you go like that and then poof, suddenly all these things come out of nowhere that you haven't named and all sorts of things. But, you know, it's cool for workflow in terms of this kind of thing where you don't want to necessarily remove it completely because you might want to come back to this, but the chances are we won't. You know what I mean? Chances are we've got enough stuff here to work with. We could always load it up inside some sort of granulizer or some other type of sampler and create stuff out of that, you know? Yeah, this is so cool, but it's a bit too random and all over the place. So I want to be able to like chop that into more thoughtful segments, so it doesn't quite sound like it has been randomized. So it sounds like there's actual kind of thought involved in the chopping and that kind of thing. I feel like there's a fine line between like completely random and what sounds like super technical, and it's just a mix of just completely random, but then like meticulously choosing which parts of that randomization sound the best to you. I feel like that's the perfect balance, you know. Here, for example, it can just toggle active. Thing is gone out of the project. Just call this glitches. most of that second half sounds like rubbish, so we can just use the first half. I think that's enough randomization, so we can actually just go like this and then consolidate these clips. Boom. Boom. And then what I was talking about earlier is now that these are contained inside a clip, we can actually just copy this, open this up, and just like shift things to create slight variations each time, you know? Oopsie. Okay, I want to give you folks a sneak peek of the pack that I've been working on, because there's a couple of different contexts here that I think it'll really fit in really well. Well, I guess there's a lot of stuff in the pack, so again, I don't want to give away too much, but the idea of the pack is, complex chains of effects for various different tasks. So one task is being transitions. So, for example, with these types of synths and stuff, often you want to quickly just create a reverb wash or something like that. So it's a bunch of effects that, just have a single macro designed to quickly create these kind of transitions and that kind of thing. I guess the strength of the pack is that most of the macros and stuff are kind of designed around the same thing, or in the categories around the same thing. So you can create automation, for example, on the transition, and then just cycle through which ones are going to suit the sound the best. Does that make sense? So let's just try out a couple of examples here. This one is pretty good for these kind of lead sounds because it's got like a tape stop right at the end. But like I said, we're going to cycle through a couple of these examples and just see which one suits this the best. I think the power of these things is it doesn't just work on leads. You can put this on like a kick and bass group and that kind of thing, and it'll still work really well. So let's just try out a couple of these ones in this context. So this one's really cool for this kind of thing because it kind of fades into almost like an endless reverb delay thing. So with these kinds of transitions where you don't want the sound to continue afterwards, you kind of want it to build, and then just delay out. It's kind of designed for these kinds of things. You see, so like as it goes there, it kind of like sweeps the volume down and puts in a delay and reverb. Although here I've put it on the leads group, whereas I actually want it on this instance of Vital because I want this lead, this other lead to remain unchanged. So we can actually just drag that over here. Should keep the automation intact. Yes, nice one. Nice one, Bitwig. It was kind of cool, but I felt like in this context, the tape stop kind of broke the rhythm a little bit too much, where we got this kind of rhythmic element building up there. I didn't want to do that to this break, maybe in a later break. But, you know, the beauty of this thing is, like, you know, you could have one snap heap and load a bunch of them in, you know, let me just show you what I'm talking about. So, like, for example, a snap heap. And then you just load in a bunch of these. Let's say, boom, this one, boom, and then you just change this one, boom. You know, change them, and they're all designed to be linear at 0%. So as long as there's no as long as there's no transition or effects happening on the sound, it's going to be completely linear. So there's no audible difference to the sound here. And then you could just modulate this. Do I want this transition, or do I want this transition, or this transition? I've kind of built the whole thing around the modular nature of Snap Heap. But it's not just transitions. There's a couple of other things here. For example, some creative filters and all sorts of things. Some like my own filter models that I've created. Some more creative effects, shimmer reverbs, all sorts of things like that. Some mixing helper stuff. I actually used this perk aid on the percussions group here. Same thing with the bass. A couple of these examples I've already used. So then there's also like these really crazy mangler type of things, which I will show you shortly. So let's actually just pop some of these off here. I'll maybe do that on the effects channel, because those are a bit brutal. Or so like here, well, actually let's just yeah, we've got enough stuff happening in the effects, yeah. Okay, so Snap Heap. So with the manglers, there's actually two categories. One that I called heavy hitters, which is like completely, like they use a lot of CPU. So for example, some of them might not work in a full project, but they're cool for stuff like when you're doing more creative sound design sessions where you're not using this in context. You want to render the stuff out and use as cherry pies or mud pies or whatever. So this isn't Faceplant, this is Snap Heap, so you can actually load this effect on pretty much any synth. That's why I designed most of these presets in Snap Heap as opposed to like in Faceplant or Multipass or whatever. So let me just show you what some of these mangler stuff sound like. So bear in mind, this is like a lot of it is just completely like mangling the sound. That's kind of what it's designed for. But yeah, like I said, the heavy hitters like really do hit your CPU quite heavily. Yeah, because I'm streaming with a video and stuff. It's not gonna work in this example. But I'll show you some of the more basic ones. Like this one is made like turns anything into like a riser. Or like a speed down effect. So remember what the source input was, it was this. So this kind of thing is like cool if you like mix it in for just subtle movements where you still have the original sound playing, but then you've got this like up and down movements that are kind of driving the overall, you know, psychoacoustics of the sound at the moment, you know. But with this one, I actually want to put it not on this group. I want to put it just on the glitches group, so the pads still come through clean over here. So anyway, I think that's enough examples. I don't want to give away too much. Dude, I actually got it one day. I got to load up because in OBS, the software I use for streaming, I should have loaded Snap Heap up here, and then at that moment where like you could turn anything into a riser, I should have like enabled that on my voice. So it's like anything into a riser. It actually gives me a good idea for a video. Spoiler alert. Okay, I gotta take a quick bathroom break. I'll see you guys in a moment. One of the other really cool features that's been added to Vital is a new LFO trigger mode called Point Cycle. So what this does is it basically like jumps to the next point each time the note is re-triggered, which is pretty interesting for, you know, modulation stuff, because you could draw in like a sequence and then it'll step through those sequences as you as you trigger the notes. So I think that's pretty cool. One of the lesser talked about features. So let's see how this would work in context. I think here we could make like a squelch sound. So let's say, for example, draw in a couple of these, and then every so often we'll change the one, so it's like a different pattern each time, and then we can see how this point cycle actually works when we put it on, for example, the pitch. Do you see how each time we trigger a note, now it jumps to the next point? So you can create a bunch of different curves for squelches and stuff, and then just jump between those. So it's cool for squelches. Although what I want to do is I kind of want to create something that's a bit more like bipolar. So it goes up and down. This might be a bit confusing to do because we want all of these start points to be here instead. I don't think there's a shortcut to do this, but it doesn't matter. It would be cool if there was like a button that would automatically like switch it. But then here we want to switch this to bipolar. Because then some of them we can go like up. Hey, Game Boy Z, thanks, man. Appreciate that. Good to see you. Hey, half god, half beast. I don't know if I said hello yet. Everybody else also who's tuning in, thank you. Appreciate it. If you have any questions or anything, don't hesitate. Just give me a shout. You can add me in the chat. It just makes it easier for me to actually see it, while I'm going about my thing over here. That's super cool. Super cool. It's like a bit much, I think, for this part. I think it's cool, a bit more subtle. Hey, Raymond, when are you playing live again in Cape Town? I don't know, man. I haven't actually been booked, so I can't say definitively when that will be. Hey, Safist. Hey, Tobias. How y'all doing? It's a little bit too random. It's a little bit too random. So let's go with Riffer. We can say, why is Riffer not showing up here? That's it's because it registers as an instrument. That's why. Go with Phrygian. think this visuals thing, I just want to check something here. If I minimize this, then it'll stop. Yeah. I think this is eating up my CPU. So I'm actually just gonna... It's unnecessary. When is this? Yes. Oh, much better. Hey, Alex Reed. How are you doing? Asterix vibes. Thanks, GenFX303. Appreciate it. Not so sure about the 303. Sounded fine in the moment, in context, not so much. That's just a saw wave going into Infiltrator. Can't even believe that. So sick. So sick. I think it needs to be rendered though, and then we can choose like the best parts of that, I think. Let's just do the thing. Do the thing. Do the thing. Boom. The thing has been done. The bass is a whole song on itself. Just a preset, bro. What? Hey, Black Marvin, how are you doing? You can. I just haven't figured out what the way to do it is. But I guess the easiest way would be like to just make an operator, and then just draw the line like this. But I didn't want. I wanted to change it up a little bit anyway. I wanted each one to be slightly different, so not as kind of regimented. I think if you highlight them like this, and then change this to pen tool, you can. I think it's if you hold Alt like that, you do it like that. Like this. So you can do it like that with the pen tool. But I was just trying to see, is there a way, like a hotkey? I'm still trying to figure out all the hotkeys and that kind of thing. Oh, Black Marvin, don't you know these operators, man? Yo, this thing, wowza. You basically can set the amount of notes within, like, re-triggers in a note, and then you can change, like, the balance of, like, how the time is kind of shifted. Do you see that? So you can do these kind of, like, time shift type things, like this. And because you can kind of adjust it ever so slightly, you can get it so tight. I'm not sure about this thing, this part. I'm not sure about this, this bass here. It's not. I'm not feeling it. I think here, if we just had more of a progression, more of a harder, full-on kind of synth coming in here, and then just leading into this, I think that would be more effective. I need to be right back. I will be a minute or two. I will see you guys just now. Let me just loop this for everybody. Remember, if you have any questions, just add me in the chat. It makes it a little bit easier for me to see. I will see you guys in a moment. Okay, I think this needs like a main lead or some kind of main thing that we can use to tie the two segments together, like with the build and all that kind of thing. So let's think about how we can do this. What I want to do is perhaps pull up a preset that we could use as a placeholder. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Throw in a vital. Vital update for those Bitwig users, by the way. There's a CLAP version, CLAP, which is the new Clever Audio plugin format, which I believe only Bitwig has. But it just integrates so much smoother with the whole platform and everything. And I believe, like here, for example, the macros are automatically lined up to the performance thingamies. I'm not quite sure about how this whole system works yet in Bitwig. I haven't quite dived in there, but I usually just link the things when I need them, you know? Yes, indeed. More Dudux, more cowbells, more all of that stuff. I feel like with the more full-on nighttime stuff, I try to go for more synthetic sounds as opposed to organic. It's nice to have one or two like vocally alien-y type of sounds that kind of sound more vocally, but I feel like with the traditional instruments, I kind of try to leave that more for the progressive side of things to add more organic textures and stuff to the sounds. But like, let's see what happens. Maybe we can throw in one or two things, you know. Voice stacking. Hey, Alexandre, how are you doing? That is actually a very good that's a very good point. I actually didn't think of that. That is incredible. I see here this parameter is open. So let's see, can we voice stack? Because as Alexandre pointed out now, that is one of the things. How would we actually get it to work? Because it's not picking up. Would it have to? It's not actually picking up that there is enable voice stacking in the device. There's no option to actually do that. Interesting. It's probably coming in an update because I didn't see any parameters here, for example, to do it. They need a bit of support for it to work. True. I could imagine that to be the case. Not a biggie. I mean, there's certain kind of voice stacking type of things that you can do within the wavetable already. And I mean, at that level, that to be honest with you, like within Psytrance, like the more full-on type of stuff, the chords and multiple voices and stuff is not really very much of a big thing. I find with the more cinematic sounds, absolutely. U plugins and Surge should work. Fantastic. That's fantastic news. So yeah, what I wanted to do is like pull up a preset. Maybe we could just kind of get an idea of what sort of melody we want, and then we can start actually designing the sound around like what's already there. Ian Clay, the Turing machine, yeah, absolutely, it can record MIDI into a track. That's why one of the reasons why I left it as a note grid thingy. Let me show you. Just give you a quick example. In fact, I've got a collection here of my things. I'm gonna pull up this one and drop it here. And so I'm just gonna let it play and then open up another channel here. Let's just say add instrument track, and then we can set the input here to the Turing machine's output, right? And then if we just record a clip, you'll see the MIDI is coming in here randomly. So if you get a clip and like a thing that you like enjoy and it's looping, you can just record it into another channel's clip if you want, rather than letting it loop infinitely. Because the problem is, once you save the project, the array buffer gets cleared. So it is a good idea to actually, once you have a cool thing in the Turing machine, to actually record it out. But yeah, that's to answer your question. Damn, I like this so much. Like, that's the problem. Like, when you do this, like so I guess it's okay because it is my preset. But like, when you find a preset and then try, it just works so well with the melody that I've recorded in. You know what I mean? So I don't really want to change it now, but we can make another one and see how it compares. You know, for example, let's just go like this, duplicate, and we can just mute this one, and then here, for example, we can just go in and initialize and just start creating another sound from scratch here. I'm not sure how many of you know this, but here in the wavetable settings, let me just pull this away. In the advanced settings, this spect spread and table spread, these change how each of the voices in the unison change the spectral morph parameter. So, for example, you can also do it with the distortion parameter. So you can have a different FM for each of the voices. Hey, what's up? E, how are you doing? But with this kind of thing, I want very, very fine tune the dynamic, the detune range, like very, very fine tune, like that. So I guess it's subtle, especially when you're doing like a distorted type of sound, but it's a really nice way of making a sound sound a lot more like it has a lot more texture and that kind of thing. By doing like a unison split, making each voice slightly different with these kinds of parameters. I guess it's similar to like what Alexandre Beek was saying about the voice stacking, how you could do that with parameters and stuff inside stuff like the grid and any of the Bitwig stuff. But kind of hacking a unison thing to be able to do that, which is really, really cool thing about Vital as well. So I like the sound of this, like the tone. Let's just work on some like filtering of it. And like I was saying before, the reason I just by default usually just go for this filter is because I don't know if I want the filter before or after the distortion. I guess we've got one here baked into the distortion anyway, but it's just one of those things which I just usually just default like, okay, now we need a filter. So I go to whichever filter is most accessible. It's a very infected mushroom-like sound, eh? I won't lie, I'll give you that. Hey, Patrick, how are you doing? I'm good, thanks. I'm good, thanks. How are you? I think that's where I'm going to call it for today. I don't see many questions coming through. Let me just see if I've got the same thing that I see Wave Morpher is talking about here. Vital. Vital. I'm going to check the MP3 version, VST3 version. I don't have those dots. I've got the dots on these dots on the macros. I believe these are like the quick controls, but I don't have mine assigned at the moment because I usually just do the learn MIDI thing. But I do that here. This one. But yes, if you want to stick around to hear what we've done throughout the stream, and feel free to do so. Also, please don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps. Every little bit helps. I believe those are like the quick controls. So do you use Bitwig? So that would be, for example, like your performance thingamajigs. You know, these mappings here. I believe it's something to do with these. I don't know. Doesn't look like it, but maybe I'm wrong. Oh, we got a lot of stuff in here, almost a full track. I think it's just like the fine tunings, little bits here and there. I think we need one more section that's maybe like a little bit of a switch up, because there's, you know, often when I'm producing a track, like you get into a specific sound or specific mindset, and it helps to kind of like get out and then get back in to be able to get a completely fresh angle at it, be able to make a nice switch up. You know what I mean? So I think there's still a few parts which we could develop on, maybe a little bit more of a progression here, if like it moves into something else, transitions into something like a switch up, and then here again, and then we start winding it down. But the main ideas are in, and I really like where we've got with this. So yeah, thanks everyone. I will see you guys again soon. Cheers.
Yeah.